Hey, welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about using functions as variables, and then that's going to lead into this concept of callbacks. So I've already set us up. I've copied our template. I've set our title, and let's start looking at some scripts. So I'm going to close this out. I'm all set up here on the right-hand side. Let's just refresh to see I get nothing. Okay. So the first thing is we're going to talk about functions, and they can be assigned to a variable. We've already seen this. We did this in the last episode on where we declared functions 3 different ways. We used a declaration, we use an expression, and that's what this is we're using an expression to set this function equal to this variable name. And then I'm using that variable name later on to execute or call that function. So if I refresh this now, I'm going to get hi from the say hi function. We did this the last time, but I wanted to remind everybody where we're coming from. So this is a function that I've assigned it to a variable name called say underscore hi. We can also pass functions in as arguments. So let's create an example here. I'm going to create a whisper function. And it's going to take a message. And what it's going to do is it's going to print whatever you give it, and it's going to change it to all lowercase. We're going to console log message. Now, message is really a string type. It's going to be a string type. Strings have methods that are on them. If you hit the dot operator, you can start to see some of these methods, and we're going to use the to lowercase method. Whisper, if I call whisper and I call it with something all capital letters, let's just see what we get here. I'm going to refresh this, and you see how it's all lowercase. I'm going to create another function called shout. It's going to take a message also. And it's going to do exactly the opposite thing. It's going to log message, but we're going to use the dot operator, and we're going to go to uppercase. If I shout something that is all lowercase, it should now console log uppercase. And we see that. So those are my two functions. Nothing new here. I just declared two new functions. Or comment out these calls to the functions. We won't need those. But here's where we're going to introduce something new. So I'm going to create another function called speak. And it's going to take a message, but it's going to take a function as its second argument. So we're just going to label this func here for now. And now think about where we're at. Inside this function, I have two arguments. I have a message, which is a string, and I have this function, which is a variable called func, which I can execute inside of speak. So I can call func just like this. In fact, I can pass message to it. So then I can execute my speak function. So we can say, hello, what's the function I want to pass in? Well, what if I pass in whisper? Whisper is a function. If I pass that function in, what's going to happen is inside speak, it's going to call the function whisper with the parameter or the argument message. Let's see what that looks like. I'll refresh this, and you can see it says, hello, all lowercase. I can also send a different speak message. Maybe it's go away, and I want to shout this message. So I'm going to refresh, and now you can see I'm getting the shouted message, go away. And this is an interesting concept. Now I'm passing a function in as an argument. Now this is important. We see this a lot in JavaScript. And sometimes what you're going to see is it shows up like this. Maybe there's a function that does some process. We don't know what it is. And it takes some data, first of all. We don't know what the data is, but let's just say it takes some data. But then it's going to take as arguments a success callback and a failure callback. And inside of process, it's going to do some processing, obviously. And then later on, it has a chance to call either success or failure for the callback method. And just to make this a little more clear, let's pass in two parameters. A and B is the data. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the sum. It's A plus B. And if the sum is greater than 10, we're going to call the success callback. And we'll just pass the sum back into the success callback. Else, we're going to call the failure callback. And we'll pass sum into it. So this is an interesting function called process. It takes two parameters, A and B, which are two numbers, presumably. We're going to add them together. And then it takes two callback methods, which are functions. These functions are going to be called depending upon the business logic that's inside the process function. So how do I call this? So first of all, let's create a success function here, which takes a sum. And all we're going to do is we'll just console log success, and we'll put the sum there. And let's create another function here called, maybe there's an error, console log, And this is going to be our failure callback, but we'll still log the error and the sum. And so now I can call process, and we're going to feed in two numbers, a 2 and a 3. That's going to sum up to 5. That's going to be less than 10. Should be a failure. In fact, first time, let's go ahead and make it greater than 10. I want to see it succeed first. We're going to pass in success as my success callback and error as my error callback. If I run this, it says success 32. I can run this again, but let's make it fail. So now I do the 3, and it says error 5. So this is a very common pattern in JavaScript where I pass functions in, sometimes as success or failure callbacks. Then the business logic inside the function gets to decide which path I'm going to take. That's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to start talking about arrays. Arrays are going to show up everywhere in JavaScript, so it's important we understand those. We'll see you next time.